Smoke rose across the red sky, twisting into shapes that looked like ghosts above the broken world. The air smelled of burning metal and dust. Every breath hurt. The city that once stood proud was now nothing but ruins, cracked towers leaning like bones of giants. Ethan Cole ran through what was left of the old streets, his boots crunching glass and ash. The sound of gunfire echoed far behind him, mixed with the heavy pulse of alien engines. He carried his rifle tight against his chest, trying not to look at the bodies scattered along the road. They were soldiers from both sides, human and alien, lying still in the same dirt. He was part of the last human unit sent to hold the Crimson Divide, a stretch of land the alien armies wanted for its energy fields. The mission was simple: hold the line until reinforcements arrived. But the reinforcements never came. Now it was only him and a handful of others cut off from command, hiding among ruins while the alien forces advanced. The sky thundered again. Ethan looked up and saw one of their ships shaped like a blade cutting through the smoke. A bright light followed, then the ground shook. The blast threw him to the ground, dust filling his lungs. He coughed hard and crawled to cover behind a fallen wall. His helmet cracked and the comm link only spat out static. He was alone. He pressed his back against the cold stone and closed his eyes for a second. He tried to slow his breathing. He remembered the stories everyone told before coming here. They said the Vrax Dominion wasn't an army, it was a storm. A wave of soldiers bred only for war, never feeling fear, never showing mercy. And at the center of that storm was one name whispered by every survivor: Commander Lysara. They said she never missed a strike, that she once destroyed an entire armored column with nothing but her sword. Some said she was not even flesh but a living weapon, a creature made of metal and fury. Ethan didn't believe most of it. He thought those were just stories told by scared soldiers trying to make sense of their losses. But the way the ground trembled today, the way every unit fell back without orders, it made him wonder if the stories were true. A voice crackled faintly in his headset. "Cole, anyone left? We're falling back to the western ridge." Ethan tapped his helmet. "I'm here. Trying to reach you. Where are you exactly?" "Too late," the voice replied through static. "They're coming. She's here." The signal died. He looked over the wall and saw them. Dark shapes moving through the haze, dozens of alien soldiers in shining armor. Their skin glowed faintly under the smoke, their movements fast and exact. They didn't shout or break formation. They moved like one living thing, and then she appeared. At first he thought it was a reflection of the flames, a tall figure walking through fire. But no, she was real. The smoke parted as she stepped forward. Commander Lysara. Her armor was made of something silver and black, alive with faint blue lines that pulsed with every breath she took. Her long hair shimmered like molten glass, and her eyes, cold and bright as a blade, searched the battlefield like a predator hunting for the last sound of resistance. She carried a long sword on her back, but it wasn't like any weapon Ethan had seen before. The blade glowed faintly, rippling as if it was part of her body. The other Vrax soldiers followed her without a word. Where she looked, they moved. Where she stopped, they waited. It was like she was their heartbeat. Ethan ducked lower. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. He checked his rifle. Only one full clip left. The smart thing would be to stay down, wait until they passed, and maybe slip away when night fell. But a small, reckless part of him wanted to see her up close. The legend, the monster, the reason so many of his friends never came home. He peeked again. She was moving closer, her steps slow, deliberate. The ground under her boots cracked slightly with each step. One of the human soldiers, hidden in a collapsed transport, fired a plasma shot at her. The blast hit her shield and burst into sparks. She didn't even flinch. She raised her sword, and in one motion a wave of energy cut through the transport like paper. Silence followed. Ethan froze. He had never seen power like that. It wasn't just strength, it was precision, beauty, and destruction. For a moment she looked like some kind of goddess of war, not just an enemy. He didn't know why that thought came to him. Maybe it was the way she moved, calm in the chaos, graceful even when surrounded by fire. Then a piece of debris exploded near him, and his cover crumbled. The sound drew her attention. She turned her head. Their eyes met for the first time. Ethan's breath caught. She didn't look angry. Her face was unreadable, smooth, cold, but her gaze locked onto him like she could see through the smoke, through his fear, through everything. He tried to lift his rifle, but his hands were shaking. The next explosion threw him backward and the wall collapsed. Pain spread through his leg as a chunk of metal pinned him down. He tried to move, but it was too heavy. The world around him went dim, only the sound of fire and slow, steady footsteps coming closer. He forced his eyes open. Through the dust, he saw her figure again. She was standing just a few steps away, her sword drawn, the glow of the blade reflecting in his cracked visor. Ethan swallowed hard. This was it, the end. He waited for the strike, but it didn't come. She just stood there, staring at him. The battlefield was silent now. Even the wind had stopped. For a moment, the only sound was her breathing and the faint hum of her weapon. Ethan's voice came out rough and weak. Go ahead. Finish it. Nothing. Her eyes narrowed slightly and she tilted her head, studying him. She looked at his broken leg, the blood running down his armor, the weapon lying useless beside him. Then she lowered her sword a little. Ethan blinked, confused. Why aren't you? Before he could finish, she drove the blade into the ground beside him. The ground cracked from the force. The tip stopped inches from his ribs. He could feel the heat from the weapon on his skin. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm and strange, almost soft. You should not have stayed. Then she turned away. Ethan watched her walk back through the flames, her figure fading into the smoke until only the faint blue glow of her armor remained. He lay there for a long time, staring at the blade mark beside him. His mind was racing. She could have killed him. There was no reason not to. She had destroyed an entire squad moments earlier without hesitation. But she had looked at him, studied him, and then walked away. The sound of distant thunder rolled over the ruins. He heard faint voices, human voices, calling for survivors. With effort, he pushed at the metal trapping his leg. Pain shot up his side, but he didn't stop. He pulled himself free and crawled toward the open road. The rescue team found him half an hour later. They carried him onto a small transport ship, one of the few left flying. While the medic wrapped his wounds, Ethan looked out the cracked window. The battlefield stretched far into the horizon, red and black, glowing with scattered fires. Somewhere out there, she was still walking, leading her army through the ruins. The medic asked him who did this to him. Ethan hesitated, still seeing her eyes in his mind. He finally said it was her. The commander. The medic frowned. You mean the Vrax leader? Lysara? Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, but she didn't kill me. The medic looked puzzled. Then why spare you? Ethan didn't answer. He stared out the window until the ship lifted off, his thoughts caught between fear and something he didn't understand. Maybe she didn't see him as a threat. Maybe she pitied him. Or maybe just for a second the monster they'd all heard about saw something human, and it stopped her hand. The ship rose higher, leaving behind the silent battlefield. Below, the wind carried ash across the empty streets, covering the ruins like a gray blanket. Ethan closed his eyes, but even then he could still see her face, cold, calm, and strange. The face of a warrior who had torn through entire armies, but for some reason had chosen to let him live. He didn't know it yet, but that moment would follow him long after the war ended. The days after the battle passed slowly. Ethan woke up in the medical wing of a small human base far from the front lines. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the faint beeping from a monitor beside his bed. His leg was wrapped in layers of bandages, and every movement sent a dull ache through his body. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. Most of his unit hadn't made it. He didn't feel lucky. At night, when the lights dimmed and the noise of the base faded away, he kept seeing her face. Commander Lysara, the way she had looked at him before walking away. Those eyes haunted him, cold and strange, but not empty. She could have killed him easily. Instead, she had left him there bleeding, staring at the mark her sword left in the ground. Sometimes he dreamed of her walking through fire again. Other times he saw her standing over him, the tip of her glowing sword pressed against his chest, and just as it was about to strike, she would stop, whisper something he couldn't hear, and vanish into smoke. Every time he woke up sweating, his heart pounding like he was still trapped on that burning field. The doctors told him he would recover in a few weeks. The commanders came to question him soon after. They wanted reports, maps, details about the Vrax army, but what they really wanted to know was her. The alien commander who had crushed 3 human battalions in less than a month. What did she look like up close? One officer asked. leaning forward across the table. Ethan hesitated. Like the stories say. Silver armor, black markings, eyes like... He stopped, searching for the right word. Like glass. Hard but clear. Did she say anything to you? Another officer pressed. He shook his head slowly. Just one sentence. She told me I shouldn't have stayed. The room went silent for a moment. Then the officer sighed. That's all? That's all, Ethan said quietly. After they left, he sat alone in the room, staring at his hands. He had faced dozens of enemies before, but none like her. There was something different about that moment. Something that didn't fit into the stories about monsters and killers. He couldn't stop thinking about it. When his leg finally healed, he was transferred to a communications post. It was safer there, far from the front. His job was to monitor long-range signals, decode intercepted transmissions, and track movement from Vrax patrols. It was dull work, but after everything that happened, dull felt like peace. One evening, while he sat at his station, a faint signal came through the static. It was encrypted in Vrax code. The sound was broken and low, but he recognized the pattern. It was a command frequency, the same one the Vrax commanders used to relay orders. He listened carefully. The voice was faint, distorted by interference, but it sent a strange chill down his spine. It was her voice. He didn't understand the words, but he recognized the tone, the same cold, steady rhythm that had spoken to him on that battlefield. For a moment he froze, unsure what to do. Should he report it? Should he trace it? His hands hovered over the console. The signal faded, then returned, clearer this time. He leaned closer, turning the volume up. The alien words filled the room like whispers, then silence. The signal vanished as quickly as it appeared. He sat there for a long time, staring at the dead screen. It could have been a coincidence. The Vrax often change frequencies, and maybe it was just a random command transmission. But part of him felt like she was still out there, close enough for her voice to reach him again. That night, he couldn't sleep. The sound of her voice echoed in his head. Weeks passed, and the war dragged on. The humans were losing ground. Every report that came in spoke of another base falling, another city gone. The name Lysara appeared in every dispatch. Her army was unstoppable. One morning, the base commander called Ethan into the briefing room. A small group of soldiers stood around a holographic map, showing a red zone deep within enemy territory. "We're sending a small recon team to check this area," the commander said. "There are signs of strange energy readings, something new the Vrax are building. We need to know what it is." Ethan frowned. "You want me to go with them?" The commander nodded. "You've seen her before. You know what we're up against. If anyone can recognize her presence, it's you." He wanted to refuse. Every instinct in him said not to go back there. But he couldn't shake the thought that maybe this was a chance to find answers. Why had she spared him? Why did her voice still echo in his mind? He agreed. The next day, he boarded a small transport with 5 other soldiers. They flew low over the dead lands, silent except for the hum of the engines. The ground below looked like a scar. Burned forests, shattered plains, rivers turned black with ash. When they landed, the world was quiet. The sky was dim, painted in dull gray light. They moved through the ruins carefully, scanning for signals. The further they went, the stranger it felt. The air seemed heavy, the ground warm under their boots. After a few hours, they reached what looked like an old alien structure. Tall pillars surrounding a central dome, cracked and overgrown with strange black vines. The scanners showed faint energy pulses coming from inside. They entered slowly, weapons ready. The walls were covered in carvings, figures of warriors kneeling before a tall, glowing shape. Ethan stopped and touched one of the carvings. The design reminded him of her armor, the shape of the eyes, the sword. Suddenly a sound came from the shadows, a soft metallic scrape like a blade brushing stone. The soldiers froze. Out of the darkness stepped a tall figure. The light caught the edge of her armor, and Ethan's heart stopped. It was her, Commander Lysara. She looked different this time. Her armor was damaged, cracked in places, and her hair was tied back loosely. There was a faint cut across her cheek, a mark that didn't fit the image of the untouchable warrior. She looked tired, but still dangerous. The soldiers raised their weapons instantly. Ethan felt his stomach twist. "Wait," he said quickly, stepping forward. "Don't shoot." But before he could say more, she moved. In one smooth motion, her sword flashed. The nearest soldier fell before he even fired. Another shouted and opened fire, but the shots bounced off her shield. In seconds, the fight was over. Only Ethan remained standing, frozen where he was. She turned her gaze toward him. "You again," she said quietly, her voice cold but not cruel. Ethan lowered his weapon. "You remember me." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Few humans survive seeing me. You are unusual." He didn't know what to say. He could hear his heart pounding in his ears. "You didn't kill me before," he said. "Why?" She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "You spoke without fear. You looked at me as if I were not a monster." He swallowed hard. "Because you didn't look like one." For the first time, her gaze softened only a little. "You are strange creatures," she said. "You fight even when there is no hope, and yet you speak of mercy." He took a step closer. "Then why keep fighting? What are you trying to win?" Her hand tightened around her sword. "I was born for war. There is nothing else for me." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Ethan noticed it. She wasn't lying. She was tired, trapped in something she couldn't escape. Before he could reply, she staggered slightly. A small wound on her side was bleeding, glowing faintly. She pressed a hand to it but didn't ask for help. Ethan hesitated, then moved closer. "Don't," she warned. "You're hurt," he said quietly. "You need to stop." She stared at him, confused, like no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Her eyes flickered between anger and something softer. Ethan lowered his weapon completely. "If you wanted to kill me, you already would have. Let me help." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she slowly sank to one knee, her breathing shallow. She didn't stop him when he tore a strip from his uniform and pressed it against the wound. Her blood was strange, dark silver shining faintly under the dim light. She watched him work, silent but alert. "You risk much for an enemy," she said. "Maybe I don't see you as one," he replied quietly. She looked at him again, the same way she had on the battlefield, like she was seeing something she didn't understand. When the wound stopped bleeding, she stood up, slower this time. "The storm is coming," she said softly. "If you stay here, you will die," he frowned. "Then come with me. We can both leave." Her expression hardened again. "I cannot. My army will come. If they find you, they will not spare you." Before he could say another word, she reached out and touched the side of his helmet. The touch was light but strong. "Go, human," she said. "Forget this place." Then she turned and walked into the shadows, her figure fading into the ruined temple. Ethan stood there, stunned, his mind spinning. She had spared him again. When the storm hit, he found shelter under the fallen dome. The wind howled outside and lightning lit up the ruins. He sat there thinking about her words. Born for war, nothing else. He wondered if she even knew what peace felt like. He wondered if she ever would. By the time rescue came the next morning, she was gone. But in the dust where she had stood, he found something small, a fragment of metal from her broken armor. He picked it up and held it tight in his hand. For reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't tell anyone about her this time. Some part of him wanted to keep that encounter for himself, like a secret between two souls who were never supposed to meet. He didn't know it yet, but this was not the last time their paths would cross.